Assalamu alaikum dear students. My name is Bilqees Shah and I am lecturer in English at Govt Girls Degree College Zamzama. Today we are going to learn about a sonnet and its title is Sonnet Composed Upon Westminster Bridge and it is written by William Wordsworth. This poem is included in the syllabus of intermediate students, particularly first year students. What is sonnet? Sonnet is a 14 lines poem. It is divided into two sections, 8 lines and 6 lines. Initial 8 lines are called octave and last 6 lines are called sistate. Sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge is a Petrarchan sonnet. We call it a Petrarchan sonnet because it is named after one of its greatest practitioners, the Italian poet Petrarch. Sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge is a Petrarchan sonnet, or we can also call it Italian sonnet. Dear students, the poet of this poem is William Wordsworth, and we know that William Wordsworth is poet of nature. Wordsworth was born in the Lake District of northern England. He was the second child of a modestly prosperous estate manager. He lost his mother when he was only 7 years old and his father when he was 13 years old. He is poet of nature not because he was a native of the Lake District, an extremely beautiful region of lakes and mountains in the northwest of England, but he is poet of nature because he loves nature and he describes nature in his poetry. There are so many other poems written by William Wordsworth on the theme of nature. One of them is The Daffodils, which you have studied in your previous class, and I hope that you remember it. This is complete text of sonnet composed upon the Westminster Bridge. Before going to give you a brief introduction of the poem, let's read it. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by. A sight so touching in its majesty. The city now doth like a garment wear, the beauty of the morning, silent bare. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, temples lie, open into the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor valley, rock, or hill. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. Dear students, in the summer of 1802, William Wordsworth travelled with his sister Dorothy to Calais, France. They stopped in London. This information is taken from Dorothy's journal. They left London early in the morning, crossing over the famous Westminster Bridge to get out of the town. Both Dorothy and William Wordsworth were inspired by London scene from the Westminster Bridge. The result of this inspiration is in the shape of a composition titled A Sonnet Composed Upon Westminster Bridge by William Wordsworth. The sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge captures the feeling of those lucky moments when it seems that the tired old world is made completely new again. Everything becomes simple and bright, like a freshly minted penny. We all have such feelings at one time or another time, like in spring, during rain, or when we travel. Dear students, for the better understanding of this poem, we have to go through it line by line. So in this way, we will be able to understand this poem thoroughly and you will be able to answer all the questions related to this poem in your annual assessment. As we know that the sonnet is a composition of 14 lines, so I am going to explain all 14 lines one by one. Line number 1. Earth has not anything to show more fair. In this introductory line, William Wordsworth here declares that he has founded the most beautiful scene on earth. While crossing over the Westminster Bridge, William Wordsworth makes a bold statement that he has founded the most beautiful scenery on the planet. I think it's a more reflection of his mood rather than outside world. Line number 2. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by. William Wordsworth, instead of trying to describe the scene further, as he describes in the first line that morning scene from the Westminster Bridge is the most beautiful scene on the earth, He is telling us that a person who is not responding to the scene or who is not enjoying the beauty of the morning is the dullest person. One who just passes the beautiful scene is a very boring person. He justifies his decision to stop his coach along the way to look at the view from the bridge. Line number 3. A sight so touching in its majesty. William Wordsworth is now enjoying the natural beauty while standing on the London Bridge. The speaker observes the view of London from the Westminster Bridge. He claims that the scene of early morning is beautiful, and this majestic scene is so attractive. Touching and majestic scenes are two beautiful types of scenes. Touching is like a child gives a bowl of water to a dying soldier in the battlefield, while majestic scenes are often large, like a snow-covered mountain. So according to William Wordsworth, this scene from Westminster Bridge combines both elements, touching and majestic. Line number 4 and 5. This city now doth like a garment wear, the beauty of the morning silent wear. William Wordsworth with his sister Dorothy is going to the port of Dover, July 1802, en route to the Paris. Dear students, just imagine the early dawn when no one is on the street. London is looking beautiful at the early dawn, and it seems that London is wearing a beautiful dress. Here William Wordsworth personifies the London city. To personify any object is like when you assign the qualities of a person to something that isn't human. We know that a city cannot wear dress, but William Wordsworth personifies the London that London is wearing a beautiful garment. He personifies the city as a person wearing a beautiful dress. William Wordsworth, with the help of his strong imagination, presenting London as a person, and that person itself is beautiful. And further, its beauty is enhanced because of a beautiful dress. London won't be wearing this beautiful garment for long. The last two words, silent and bare, are related to the next lines. Line number 6, 7 and 8. Ships, towers, domes, theatres and temples lie, open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. William Wordsworth is trying to capture the emotion which is generated by the things like ship, dome, tower, river and houses. In general terms, he describes some of the sights which are visible from Westminster Bridge. The setting is silent because of early hour. From Dorothy's journal, we came to know that it was around 5 or 6 am. Here, bare means naked and it is opposite of garment. Initially, William Wordsworth says London is wearing garment, but in this line he says that ships, River Thames, the dome of the famous St. Paul Cathedral designed by the architect Christopher Wren and the iconic Tower of London are bare, not covered with sunshine in the early morning. Ships and buildings are open to the fields of London and to the sky. He focuses on sunshine, morning, summer sunlight, which means the buildings bright and glittering. The word glittering in particular suggests that the scene is not static, but rather constantly changing with the shifting light. William Wordsworth observed that early morning light is bright and clear because there is no smoke of chimneys and fog. Line number 9 and 10. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor, valley, rock or hill. In these initial lines of this state, William Wordsworth returns to his bold claim from the beginning of the poem that earth has never presented a scene as beautiful as this one is. He wants to say that the sun never did rise as beautifully as it is rising now. He is so impressed by the scene from the London Bridge, so that he is comparing the rising of sun on valley, rock or hill. He spent most of the time of his life in the Lake District, a beautiful countryside of England. And these scenes would have been more familiar to Wordsworth than the scenery of London, who spent most of his life in rural parts of England, such as the picturesque Lake District in the northwest part of country. Here, first splendor means morning, rather I say early morning. In these two lines, rising of sun is described by William Wordsworth and is compared with the rising of sun on countryside. Line number 11 and 12. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep, the river glideth at his own sweet will. In this sonnet, William Wordsworth talks about the greatest scene which he ever experienced in his life, and he continues it till line number 11 and 12. In these lines, the calmness of the morning attracts him a lot. The beauty of early morning is silence, so William Wordsworth is inspired from the silence and he claims that he never felt it before in his life. Though he lived in the Lake District of England, which is rich with natural beauty, indeed he was not expecting such silence in London city because at that time even London was bustling city. Once again, he is comparing calmness of London with naturally and normally calm places like hills, mountains, and valleys. In the next line, glideth means move smoothly. William Wordsworth here personifies the river Thames. River is a person who moves smoothly and slowly. Here, the river is described as a patient person who takes his time and doesn't allow himself to be rushed. He moves according to his own sweet will. Line number 13 and 14. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. At the end of the sonnet, William Wordsworth cries out to God that this is awesome scene and he never experienced it before in his life. He finds London a glorious sight in the early morning light because the city has not yet woken up and these industrial processes and governmental activities have not yet begun. William Wordsworth is complaining to God that every house is sleeping here. He personifies the houses that houses are sleeping, but indeed people are sleeping in the houses. London city is described as a mighty heart in the final line. Dear students, I hope that this explanation of the poem Sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge will be helpful for you to understand it. If you have any question regarding this lecture, you are welcome to ask in comment section. Thank you.